Hello and welcome to Schmidy's guide on how to tank E5 Ankh in Secret World Legends. We're going to be doing this from the perspective of the tank, however we are going to be going over the changes that you'll need to be making or the mechanics you'll have to be dealing with regardless of your role. So the first thing we're going to do is hop into our tank gear and we're going to allocate our anima to be a little bit closer to appropriate levels, which is about 13 to 14,000 hit points and approximately 13 to 14,000 protection rating. I've got some friends with me who are also all working with their anima allocation set to a point where we are doing close to appropriate damage for the E5 dungeon level. Oh, and I guess I can swap over to my slightly less powerful weapons here. I really miss Alacrity a lot, but that'll make it so that I am also doing appropriate damage because I'm only getting any power from my weapons anyway. Alright, so first we have the Squalid Hecklergist. Mostly this fight, the name of the game is don't jump into those moats, and if you get the circle around you that he uses, all you need to do is slowly back away from the group, and if you telegraph it, they will get out of your way. So, we'll start here. I like to use my cooldown right as I start off. And then we start the fight here. Just make sure that you get enough aggro before you use anything that isn't a high hate skill, like Eruption. And everybody will just sort of walk away. Yeah, Slim didn't even have to move. And then if anybody does get caught by these, which they shouldn't, you can hit the moats to get them off of people. Oh, like me. So I'm just going to bring this over to my DPS and they're going to get it off of me because they're awesome. And I thought that I was far enough away from that, but sometimes lag or whatever, yeah, makes it a little harder, to be sure. And this is pretty much the fight. You just don't get hit by these moats as they go in. I like to go to the edge because I think it makes it easier. But if you like to go to the center and then dive out of the way once they go center, that works too. Long as you don't get moated, or if you do get moated, you're having your friends get them off of you as quickly as possible. That fight is rather simple. Was explaining to Slim that we were going full healing anima allocation because he's got way too good gear otherwise, and we won't see any of the mechanics, which makes for poor guides. Alright, so for this fight, the healer wants to make sure that they've got some burst, because Dreaming Shroud hurts a lot, and then as the tank, we are going to be bringing a couple of different things. I'm going to swap out Seethe here for Evulsion, we're going to swap out Eruption for Immutable, and we're going to swap out Thick-Skinned and its passive, Rock Solid I think, yeah, or Rock Hard, for No Pain No Gain and its skill Pain Suppression, because when he uses Pain Suppression, we don't want to, when he uses, Dreaming Shroud, we want Pain Suppression so we don't get destroyed, because it does a ton of damage. So, yeah, as the healer, make sure that you got some kind of burst that you're saving for Dreaming Shroud, like your Elite or something, or a high healing single target skill, and we begin. So the first thing the tank is going to do is drag this Dimensional Reaper in, and everybody beats on this Reaper until he dies. When he dies, he puts a circle around whoever he has aggro on. So usually it's the tank. You'll want to move him to a spot where everybody can get out of the way and still hopefully attack. And then from here, we're beating on him and, just stay on the correct side. So he used something that's got the left side. We're going to be on the right side. And we're just going to keep doing this until he flashes purple. He'll also make the tank flash purple. And at that point in time, you want to just roll your face on Pain Suppression. And always make sure you have at least 2 energy with Hammer, so that when he does use Dreaming Shroud, you're ready for it. There it is. You see the little purple flash before it starts, and now you'll see here that for the first few seconds I'm not taking anything, and now the healer is actually healing me. And as you can see, it's really bursty, really big channel damage. It would be practically impossible to finish that. So I use Immutable here just to make sure I don't die, but you can also just like jump over it as shown here. Not that difficult. Once he's done his whole wave and everything, you can also run all the way to the back as is per usual. A Reaper will spawn each time that you finish this little sequence. Make sure that you focus the Reaper again, because as long as the Reaper is alive, Klein takes basically no damage. And you just sort of wash, rinse, repeat until you get him low enough. Once in a while here in this phase, Klein will start to cheat a little bit, and he will use SWL of Mutation on one side and Open the Void on the other side, which is really rude. But if that happens, just, you know, run back over and fight him again. He will eventually not bug and break, and so you'll be okay. And looks like we're going to beat him up. Generally, if you have expected value DPS, which this group approximately has, I think we have high-end E5 DPS on average in this group. You will only see one Dreaming Shroud, and you should only see one Dreaming Shroud unless somebody in your party dies or whatever. You can just run past that particular mummy. He will not be able to aggro you for the entire range that you run over here. Then we're going to swap back to regular tank because I think it's faster. So basically we want a regular tank build for the triplets fight, which is the next fight, but we don't want single target because they are triplets. So instead, we will bring Winds of Change, and we will also bring Burning Wrath. That's the only real change from your standard tank build here. So we're going to hop down. Usually your guys will wait for you, especially when they are and realize that they are going to be doing expected value damage to these things and can't just hop down and obliterate them. So there we go. Yep. And so yeah, there's a couple of things you can do for Dreaming Shroud. One is use Animus Effusion at the end. So the second that my stuff ends, Animus Effusion just keeps you alive. It just makes you invulnerable, just like Immutable does. Or you can just time your burst correctly to make it so that the tank doesn't die as the healer. Now here, you're usually going to want to do something of an order. Only when you kill the first two, the last one will heal back up. So you can kill two of them at the same time. It doesn't matter. Usually you're going to kill the right, and then the middle, and then the left. But yeah, the last one will go all the way back to full health. So eventually they're going to start popping grenades here, and they'll use Close Down, which is a skill that slows you. So as the tank, you can impair that if you would like to. You don't have to, but it's nice. We'll use Eruption in the way that hits two of them. And everybody's sort of just attacking at this point in time. As they die, the Dead Ops start doing more damage, so the healer's going to start having to pay a little bit more attention to that as you go on. So as you can see, two of them just dropped immediately, and this guy doesn't look like he is, but he is at full health. At the point in time where there's only one left, he will start using frags on anybody in the group, but he will also use a skill called Full Clip right there. That's a cone. If you are pointing towards your group right now, you're going to kill your entire group. And as you can see, he is at 0 HP, but still going. That's because he healed back to full health, but it didn't show up on the HP bar correctly. So if you see that glitch, just keep going. He's losing hit points. He'll get to 0. Cool. Then we go. I don't think that it saved that. That fight is not actually very difficult for healing, so that little faux doesn't matter too much, because even when there's only one left, the Dead Ops do not do nearly the kind of damage that they used to do in the old game. In the old game, you could get shredded here, but in this game you really don't, so not too much of an issue, although I'm kind of sad about that. But we'll move on here. So at this point in E5s, when you start this fight, 5 scientists that all buff the Arachnid with a buff called Horrific Evolution will spawn. All the DPS and the tank need to spread out and just beat them all up. And that way they'll stop buffing him because it makes him so he does a lot more damage. So that's how we'll start here. So I like to, as the tank, hit with a couple of attacks just to make sure. And as you can see, we have already gotten it so that all but one of them is not buffing the boss. There we go. Okay, now all of them are not buffing the boss. Our DPS will take care of the rest whilst we move. Now he uses Black Bile on a random target and just places filth that goes away fairly quickly. No worries there. And as the fight goes on, scientists will start respawning. The first one is going to respawn right here, next to the forklift. So we're just sort of chilling out over here waiting. And yeah, he'll turn around a lot on you in this fight. It's not because you lost aggro, hopefully. It's because you... Oh, and I still need to swap my weapons too, huh? But it's because he's going to cast Black Bile on somebody at random. Alright, so we're going to beat on this arachnid. The second spawn that you're going to get is going to be here. Right behind where we are, as you can see, we're already almost wiped him out. There he is. Cool. Then we'll have one more singleton spawn, which is going to be at the stairs. And you'll notice when he uses Black Bile, I'll go back, because he just won't move towards me at that point in time as the tank. And you can also see that he's starting to do a decent chunk of damage with a single hit, right? He's doing about 50%. Yeah, so as the healer, you're going to have to watch out for that, and as the tank, you're going to want to be able to use your cooldown. So generally, you're not going to see another set of scientists, but if you do, they'll be right in the middle. If he has less than like 10% of his hit points left, so right about now, just focus the boss. Like, they attacked him, but you'll notice that we're still focusing the boss because, like, honestly, they're just not going to do anything. Like, shoot them once so that they are on you as the DPS, and they won't kill you before you kill the boss, and that's all that really matters. We'll swap back to our epic stuff just because we can, but we've already shown that we're not about to lose aggro to people doing expected value DPS here. Even though we do have a little bit more crit rating on this gear than we would otherwise. Alright, now we have Melothat, so we gotta make sure we have a gate crasher. So basically, what's going to happen here is Melothat pops down, you got to break these gates, and one person is going to go help the tank crash the gates and make sure they're knocked down in time, and the other two are generally going to fight Melothat, because in E5 and above, if you do not get him to certain HP thresholds before he reaches that gate, he just kills everybody. So it's a DPS race, so you want to make sure you have two people with on Melothat and one person helping you break the gate down. So here, I like to use single targets because you will lose aggro. Hello, can I please? Oh, there it goes. You will lose aggro on somebody who's attacking one of the targets if you're just pressing one here. So press one maybe once to make sure you have them both on you, and then you're going to want to use single target attacks to just catch both of the adds real quick. Okay, we're about to break down this gate. And then the mummies will spawn. You want to have some kind of, AoE to deal with that. As the tank, you can bring Eruption. As the DPS, just any AoE elite works great here. We can stop him from using Close Down. And I'm going to want to stand here for a second. Yeah, so when he uses Frag, I'm not getting in Rose's way. That way she'll still be able to crash the gate. Well, we go, and you'll see we got a couple of gate crashers here at the moment, which is okay. But I'm guessing Slim is going to, and Rose are both actually going to crash this gate and kill the mummies, then they're just going to bail so that they can fight Melothat, because he will then be the only target after this. So there we go. We'll line of sight that so I don't actually get hindered there. He'll use Frag, and we're just going to drag this Dead Ops way over here now. We want to keep him as far away from the Melothat fight with our DPS as we can, because we don't want our DPS having to deal with the frag grenade. Our healer obviously is just following us this entire time, and occasionally possibly using opening shot, as he did right there, to try to buff the DPS as they continue fighting Melothat, because we don't need it here. All we're doing is holding aggro against a healer. So, you can sort of see, he'll run over to the next gate and crouch down, and the second Melothat pops back up, he will spawn several mummies that the DPS have to deal with. He does that at each gate, actually, so he did that already once, and the DPS just dealt with it. And on top of that, we will also get 2 more Orochi Dead Ups coming from the back here, and we want to pick those guys up. So here they come. And so we're going to pick them up. We're going to stop close down so that we don't have to deal with that quite yet. We'll deal with it now. If the healer's nice, the healer's going to give us a cleanse, but we don't need it. And we're just going to use a cooldown here because these Orochi Dead Ups do a lot of burst damage. When all 3 of them hit you at the same time, they can do some mean things. So our healer needs to make sure they've got some burst heals ready for this because, yeah, you will just, pop down to nothing in an instant there because they really hurt. Alright. And it wasn't perfect, but that's okay. Dungeons rarely ever are. In fact, you'll probably notice that amongst my dungeon runs, you'll see people die, you'll see a couple of wipes. That's just a part of actual dungeon running, and to pretend it isn't and make a guide where it doesn't happen seems silly to me. So you'll notice that the DPS realized that I died, and so somebody launched an ult to try to finish off the boss because it was close enough to bother using an ult. Only do that if the ult is actually going to make some kind of difference. If he still has half his HP left, you're just wasting your ult. So, there you go. We'll recover some of our anima there. Anima essence. And then we go across the Filth Lake. And try not to aggro the shades. In E5+, they are fairly nasty. If you're the tank, you'll be able to deal with them long enough to get them over to your guys and have them deal with it. But if you're a healer or the DPS, they're just going to spit at you and you'll explode. So, here, as the tank, you're going to want to bring a pull and an aggro force. Evulsion works great as both of those at the same time, which is really nice. And then if you don't have that, you can instead bring the electrogravitic attractor because you're going to want to grab some reapers again like we did on the second fight, and we're going to be dragging them into us. Then honestly, that's about it. That's all you'll really need to change. And we will have melee DPS here, so we'll show you how to deal with this fight when you have a melee DPS in your group. Healer doesn't really need to do anything special here. When Melothat is first spawning, he doesn't have his crowd control immunity yet, so you can actually just use Evulsion or your Gravatic Attractor. Wow, he's loud. To pick him up, which is kind of neat. Right here is where you can actually hit with Eruption if you use it. There are certain spots, for whatever reason, that you cannot hit Melothat with Eruption, so you may just want to switch this skill. That is also a legitimate option. And when Melothat goes down, the tank is going to dash over to Klein. And this is where I miss Alacrity a lot. Because it helps you to get back up to Klein really fast. The DPS can attack Melothat for a little while, but try not to bring him down too far. He does eventually stand back up, and he will stand back up before the tank can get back down if you go too crazy. So keep that in mind. Now obviously we have an aggro force here. If you don't, you can always just swing with a bunch of your regular high hate attacks. That should easily hold aggro. But it is also nice to be able... Oh hey, everybody has stayed away from melee range. Anyway, this is where you stand if you want somebody in melee range. It will not attack and kill anybody yet who is standing over in this area. And so he should always go down before the second sinkhole occurs if your group is doing expected value DPS. So that'll be another easy way to tell, even if you don't have an ACT up, whether or not your group is doing well. And if they are, then melee is a perfectly reasonable strategy here, and it works fine. If not, then, well, you know, you might have some trouble. So again, he stands up. The second he stands up, he resets aggro, so we are going to use an aggro force. You can sort of stand in that pool. So the funny thing about this is that that circle that he creates is larger than the chalk circle on the ground, but the circle that you can actually stand in is smaller than the filth that appears. So that's an interesting little thing there. And at this point in time, we're waiting for the Melothat classes to go down, and Klein will appear right here. Everybody should focus Klein, because if you kill him, or if you beat him up fast enough, he will not use Wave of Mutation. Like that. Yeah, with a properly geared group, you will barely have enough time. And sometimes he bugs like this. If he does, just run to the other side. As you might have seen as well, there's also a little safe spot in the filth right behind where Klein stands. That's neat too. Okay. If Klein bugs once, everything is copacetic. You'll be all right. If he bugs twice, well, with melee DPS anyway, you might have some troubles with what I just did. But it would have been nicer to have Alacrity than I would have gotten over here, and the filth would have been placed nicely. But there you go. I don't want to hit the receptacle. There we go. But again, you should kill him before he can finish a second sinkhole. With expected value DPS, all the filth will disappear, and you'll run up to the top. And Klein begins Ungodly Exhortation. Don't miss that jump, by the way, it hurts. And that's okay, like, the end part with Klein here isn't too terrible, so shouldn't be too difficult. So when you start up here, Klein is actually going to spawn 2 Reapers. Usually the tank is only going to bring 1 pull, which is what I'm going to show here. We're going to pull this one, and you'll notice that once I do that, the DPS should be attacking the other one. I think Slim's attacking this one. But the idea is that I can easily hold aggro on this Reaper forever, because he's right here with me. That Reaper I can't hold aggro on, but if you kill him really fast, then he dies before he can do anything incredibly dumb. So if everybody's attacking the Reaper that didn't get pulled, that's the best, you know, unless you're also a melee DPS, in which case, you know, you're excused, because that's the only one you can hit. And from here, we are just fighting against Horrific Evolution as it stacks higher and higher, and Klein does more and more damage with each of his hits. Honestly, it's a fairly forgiving heal check / DPS race, so usually not much trouble even if you lose a DPS here. You should be able to finish this well before you are in danger of dying. And that is how to run E5 Ankh. We'll be running Hell Eternal as well, along with this. That'll be our last dungeon for now, because there's only 5 classic dungeons out of the 8 in the game. And I hope to see you there.